Okay, buckle up folks, we're going to do the containers. This is 6 minutes of pure audio joy. So as you can see, I've cut out all the containers. I've used a craft knife and I've done some folds as well and some creases. You can see the flaps there, and I'm using good old Pritt stick to hold these in place. These are essentially the most fiddly things on earth. I'm glad that I'm doing some of this out of shot so that it keeps you on your toes. You have to imagine what I'm doing here. So I'm using a piece of wood to make sure that those folds are really pressed into place. Really quite fiddly. You can use all sorts of tools, but I found that just 2 pieces of wood, and you'll notice that these are the extra pieces that come free of charge with the sealing aspect of Artfelt, with pointy ends pushing down, actually really hold those folds, those glued folds in place. Pop that on the side. And whilst I'm waiting for that one to dry, and Pritt stick's very quick to dry, it's quite flexible at first 30 seconds or so, you can move things about. Popping the next one on in place, using my sausage-like fingers to get into that space, and another 2 pieces of wood here. They fit quite well. You'll notice there's some challenge coming up, and the other piece I'm going to sandwich together, keep it tightly in place, and then I'm going to pop on another clothes peg just there and let that just connect together. Triangular unit, again, Pritt stick, surprise. This is slightly more fiddly, slightly more complex, because it folds, it's concave at the top, it folds in on itself. Very little space to tinker, and yet the pieces still fit in quite nicely, and you can sandwich this here like that, getting that crease nice and crisp using another clothes peg. And you'll notice that I slipped there. It's not a problem, I can open it up and adjust it slightly, moving it around. And it's very fiddly. This is when a third pair of hands, if you can't find someone to give you a hand with that, it would be very helpful. And then finally this container, which is a absolute beast. So I'm using the curtain pole to roll around, although a pen or pencil works just as well. What you're doing, you're not making it that circumference. What you're doing is you're giving the paper a natural gait, a natural curve, so that it's less resistant when you actually do join it together. So it wants to sit in that curved folded state. I could have given that another curved fold. You'll notice that there are so many tabs on that base piece. Putting the glue flap on there, and then I'm going to use this again to hold it in place and turn that last piece around so it goes on the tab, lining up those pieces there, and I'm going to use the rod to push against the seal of the connection there on the flap. So it's fairly round. I'm doing this at quite a pace. Obviously I would suggest you do it slightly slower. I've found actually it's easier to do this way round. You might want to join that first, but actually it becomes more fiddly, because if you look at the size of that piece now on the screen, it's the size of my thumb, which makes it very awkward to actually move around. So I've put the glue on it, and I'm actually now going to squeeze it in place and squeeze those in slightly so that it fits in underneath. And again, this is quite awkward, but not as awkward as trying to glue it the other way. And you'll notice that the pieces are going in fairly well. There's a little bit of a protest, but you can normally get them in after a couple of tries. Almost there. You'll notice that when 3 go in, 1 wants to pop out. I think I'm there. And I'm going to use the clothes peg stick again, not the clothes peg, the curtain pole stick, to push those flaps out. You need to have those flaps as wide as possible in order to get onto the container. I can leap back to the original container, take off the clamping pieces, and you'll notice that the glue, you won't notice anything because it's not on the screen. The glue has now joined. So I'm on to the next flap now, and I found that the time that it takes to do each flap on each container allows the glue to adhere to the flap most effectively. I'm actually going for it now. Again, to just show you the technique, feel free to use the technique that you would like to. Essentially, we're in real trouble if you can't join these containers together, but these are some strategies that I've used. This is another strategy where you can just literally press from within to make sure that the container elements join together. You'll notice there's a tiny little white line. You can't avoid that, unfortunately, with paper. It's always there, always present, unfortunately. You can colour it. Those people who are really keen to have an incredibly non-visible opportunity here can, of course, get an orange coloured pencil, colour the edges of the paper. You can, of course, decorate the inside of the containers, should you wish to. All sorts of things. There is the design for some paintbrushes that you can place within as well. Totally up to you. There's the container. Enjoy.